What's up, sales players? This is your reminder to subscribe to the weekly Sales Players email. You can do that at salesplayers.co. We are officially live here with Amanda Crooks. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Jesse. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. This is going to be a really fun conversation. I'll preface it a little bit by giving a quick introduction on Amanda and how her and I got connected. So Amanda is a fan of the show, which is always incredible. And she and I have been, working together on some different consulting type projects over the last couple of months. Amanda is in an early company, and we'll talk a lot about that today. So for anyone out there who's in an early stage startup doing sales, go to market, demand gen, anything that, anything around bringing new customers to the table, Amanda is an expert on that, and we'll definitely get more into that. But I want to hand things over to her and get just a quick background. Tell the listeners more about you and where you got your start.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I would call myself an expert, but I've definitely had some experience in that realm for sure. So yes, I work for an early stage startup called BlinkMetrics, and it was a really windy path to get here. I've always worked in sales and marketing. My degree is in finance. So I started off in the finance realm. I was working in business development for an asset management company. And I couldn't see the tangible effects of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. So I jumped into the startup world, not tech or SaaS, but just sales and marketing for a couple of different startups. And I found myself working for a software company almost by accident, but
Yeah.
I'm very, very happy about it. So I'm about a year into B2B SaaS, and I joined BlinkMetrics when we were pre-revenue. And the last year has just been a journey of starting that up and figuring out, one, how to bring my sales and marketing experience into the tech realm. And then further than that, how to bring a B2B SaaS company to market. So it's been fun. There's so much we could talk about. I'll let you
Yeah.
decide where to start from there.
Yeah. A lot of directions we can go. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the decision-making process. I know listeners are always really interested in how did someone get to this company? How did that person end up working there? What drew you to Blink Metrics first and foremost? And you mentioned they were pre-revenue. Or for the listeners, are they a venture-backed company or bootstrapped? What's the sort of structure look like?
Yeah, we're bootstrapped. We got a very small amount of seed funding this past fall, but for the most part, it's a bootstrapped company. So we're
Wow.
working with very, very slim budgets, very lean team. It's sort of like any startup, right? You wear many hats, but in a bootstrap startup, you're wearing, even more hats, and they're pretty big, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How I found BlinkMetrics, I was working for a large marketing agency, and I needed something it was very structured and it was very rigid, and there wasn't a ton of opportunity to like explore and try new things. And so
Yeah.
I actually on the side picked up some part-time work creating some sales and marketing collateral for BlinkMetrics. And then when I got to the end of my time with the marketing agency and I knew I needed a change, I wanted to go back into the startup world. I mentioned it to Nathan, who's the CEO and founder of BlinkMetrics, and he said, "Well, don't accept another job offer before you have a chance to talk to me." And we kind of took it from there, and it's turned into a full-time gig now.
That's incredible. What
Yeah.
was day one like? This is actually a question I remember asking someone really early on in my career who had just joined as the first revenue hire at a startup. I was like, what did day one look like in a company like BlinkMetrics where they're pre-revenue, bootstrapped company, which we actually overall on the show haven't talked to a lot of folks that are at startups that are bootstrapped. Typically in tech, it's been venture backed. There's been funding. So I think it has its trade-offs, its pros and cons, but like talk to us about what did day one look like? What was the first thing that you did joining an early startup like that?
Yeah. So day one was actually March 1st of 2024, which was a Friday. So it was a pretty casual day one because we were
Yeah.
like, we probably should have looked at the calendar before deciding on the start date.
Well, first Monday then, maybe not first day
Yeah.
technically. Yeah, what was the
Yeah.
first Monday like?
It was interesting because I had been doing part-time work for them about 5 to 10 hours per week for 8 months prior.
Got it,
So I
okay.
already had an understanding of the product, a little bit of an understanding of how the team worked and fit together, but I mean, day 1 was just, let's take what you've been doing for 5 to 10 hours a week and then get that done in a single day. So, the speed with which I was getting things done, like, we ramped up pretty quickly because it was like a week's worth of activities happening in a day. But day 1, a lot of it was just wrapping my head around the different internal operations and processes because BlinkMetrics is a company that what the whole purpose of the company is automation. So you
Yeah,
can imagine coming into this environment, so many things were automated. Like we use Asana, but we have a ton of automations in there. So it was just a lot of learning of what tools are we using and then what has the company themselves developed and built on top of those tools that make it perfect for our own use case and our
yeah.
own employees to use those tools in the way that is like super efficient for the company. So it was the same as any first day of a job, right? You get in, you're just trying to like understand what does the landscape look like? How do I fit in? How do I not break anything or mess
Yeah,
anything up on the first week? Yeah. Yeah. So probably
yeah.
not very unique in that
Not very
sense.
unique. Got
No.
it. What was Tell us about sort of what the metrics were that you were tasked with. Was there, a North Star that you were driving towards in the role that, from day one you started thinking about, okay, how are we going to hit this big target, or how are we going to hit these KPIs?
Yeah. We didn't have any. So I was the first I was the first sales and
Oh, wow.
marketing hire for a
Yeah.
pre-revenue product. So it, it was it I guess like the my main goal was like, let's get that first customer, right? Let's
Yeah.
get that first
Yeah.
credit card that someone actually puts in and they're putting their trust in us with the product. And that happened a few months in, but throughout the last year, such a big part of my role has been, okay, what is our velocity and what can our expectations be? Because when you're so new and so young,
Yeah.
you just need time to figure out like what are you even tracking toward. So we didn't have there was no pipeline, we didn't have a CRM, we didn't even know what our ICP was yet. We had an idea, but there were no KPIs that I was being held to. I cause myself a lot of problems because I set myself goals and targets and KPIs that I'm trying to reach, and it makes my life more difficult, but I do it to myself because I like as a salesperson, I'm sure people can
Yeah.
relate, you want there to be a finish line. You want there to be an end zone that you're trying to reach, and so I had to set up my own finish line, like get to the end, see like what it kind of looks like, set it up, and then go back to the start and run as fast as I could toward it. People were like, you don't need to be doing that. You don't need to be, you know, like I just
Yeah.
it's nice to have a target, but I was kind of setting it up as I went.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of my first startup experience. The first time I joined, I was employee number 7 at this was a venture-backed company, not a huge venture round of funding, pretty small round of funding in the big scheme of things. And I remember day 1, week 1, however you want to say it, but it was like I came in and the founders didn't have a CRM. They didn't really have anything. They did have a few paying customers. They had figured out, a couple of people to start using the product, and figured out a way to bill those folks through, I don't know what it was, some like kind of stitched together homegrown billing thing. So there was no, paperwork, there was no order form templates, there was no contract this or that. It's like it was just totally the Wild West. And it's actually really exhilarating. I think you can probably agree, or you'll probably agree, is it's really cool to come into an environment like that and say, this is a complete blank canvas. And we get to come up with where we go next, and we get to, figure out what the lowest hanging fruit is for us and try to get there. But yeah, it can also be a little bit daunting when you come in and you're like, there's no rules for this, there's no policies for that, there's nothing in place in case this happens. This is just a concept, really. I guess it's a business, but it's really a concept that we're trying to prove out. So
Yeah.
I can definitely relate.
Yeah. And I had not worked in B2B SaaS before. I had in my previous roles, there were some technical aspects to what I was doing and the way I was selling to people and supporting people, but I had not worked for a software company where 90% of the team are developers and engineers. And then I'm like this sticking out like a sore thumb, just coming
Yeah.
in from left field, like totally different personality type, totally different way of working. And yeah, it was very exhilarating is the right word, like to just come in and say, okay, what are we aiming for? And everyone's like, I don't know, but I think you're the one that needs to figure it out. And and I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I actually have a great question here, which is, new to the industry, new to the B2B tech business. What were some things that you did over the last year to shortcut your learnings or kind of get to where you needed to get to faster so you understood the business and the go to market environment in a B2B space?
Yeah. Is this you asking for a plug for the Sales Players podcast?
Yeah. No, no, but I'll take one.
Yeah. So I'm a lifelong learner and it's always exciting for me to have a new challenge. And this was definitely, I felt it was pressure, but good pressure. I was like, I don't want to just come in and rest on my laurels and rest on my previous experience because
Yeah,
while some pieces of it will be applicable, there's going to be so much about this space, the way that you market a software product and talk about it and reach out to customers for it, especially we're subscription based. So, I hadn't worked in that environment before. So it really was the first few months were building out the marketing on our side, figuring out what sort of language are we using on the website. And so I was doing a lot of that sort of like pre-sales work, sort of like setting the stage for when people do finally see us, we're in a good place. But a huge part of the first few months in the job was finding resources, figuring out where do I sort of look and what sort of information am I going to take in that I don't know, but I need to know for this role. So LinkedIn was a huge resource for me, starting to follow and connect with people who are in the B2B SaaS space, whether they're on the sales side, marketing side, founding side, trying to connect with who at the time we thought was our ICP, understand what sort of things are they talking about, what are their problems.
yeah,
Um, and then from a personal growth and development, it was finding resources like podcasts that I could listen to where people were talking about the B2B SaaS space. And, the plug for sales players is that I listened to, I went on my Spotify and I think I just searched for like SaaS or
okay,
software.
yeah,
And I found a bunch of podcasts. There are so many out there, but I found sales players and it just struck me immediately like your personality on the show, your conversations, the type of stuff that you were talking about felt very applicable to what I wanted to learn. And it
yeah.
was in a conversational way where it didn't feel so out of touch with where I was at. I was like, oh, I can use some of this. Plus, the sound quality was great, which I think I mentioned to you before. Like, so many podcasts have terrible sound quality. And I apologize for this episode because it'll probably not be as good as some of your
No,
others. But
I'm I'm laughing over here because Amanda and I spent probably 5 or 10 minutes getting the audio right on this. No worries, though, that's commonplace for the show. But yeah, it's always good to hear.
yeah, but the sound quality was good, so just it was a pleasant listening experience, and I listened to a few other podcasts about marketing, and there's another podcast that I love. I don't know if I should be plugging it here, but
Yeah, no, please.
it's called Profit Led, and it's about
Profit led.
growing her company eWebinar from 0 to $1 million ARR in 36 months, and it's just her and her COO. I think his name
Wow.
is Todd, just talking about their journey. And so it was just a lot of content like that that I was taking in, but Sales Players was like the sales podcast that I listened to. I was like, this is what I need to know as a salesperson.
Awesome.
So you definitely have helped a lot just from listening to your podcast, but then also I know we've done some coaching together, and that's been immensely helpful in me just understanding the broader scope of what's out there and what's possible, and how what I'm doing is different from, what other jobs people are doing very similarly, but, you know,
Yeah.
slightly different.
Well, I appreciate the shout out here on air. Thank you. And thanks for being a listener. It's awesome. And it's
Yeah.
awesome to have folks that listen to the show end up becoming clients and then guests on the pod itself. So circle of life.
This is truly a full circle moment. I'm like, I can't believe that this is gonna end up on Sales Players podcast, because it truly, like, I found it and I was like, "Oh, man, like, this this really speaks to me," and it mattered a lot, and it's still, I listen to it every week, like, it matters a lot. Um, so it's kind of like this surreal experience to be on it. I think our first conversation, I was like, "I can't believe I'm actually talking to Jesse from Sales Players," and it was wild to me.
That's fun. Yeah. To me, I'll never get over that just because I'm just an account executive, but I'm nothing special. I had, some interesting highlights in my career. That's really about it. I'm not someone who's built a business or raised billions in funding or anything like that, but happy to share what's worked just down in the trenches as a seller. And that's the ethos of the show is how do we speak to people that are doing the job every day? Not so much the leaders. They have a different game that they play, which is building an operation and scaling things, but the practitioners, the people, especially in an early company like BlinkMetrics, where there's no guardrails. It's you come in and you help us define what success looks like. You help us figure out how to get the first customer and where the lowest hanging fruit is and those sorts of things. And so that's really what the show's about is finding, other people that are out there doing it every single day, just like yourself. I've got another question for you that I think listeners will really appreciate too. So coming into tech from a totally different sector, how did you dig into Blink's I'm calling it Blink, but Blink's product?
Yeah.
Because I know in past roles that I've been in, I've come on board, and if there's not a really strong product training element, especially in a startup, it can get really hard to know the value points of the product or how to position it to a buyer. What sort of things did you do to dig into the actual product itself, how it works, all the features and functions, but also why people should care about it?
Well, yeah, yeah. Why people should care is I'll circle back to that, but I was very lucky because it was so early stage. It was really like I came in and Nathan, who's the CEO and founder, like I had so much one-on-one time with Nathan, and he's very generous with his time, and I had just so much opportunity to get on calls with him. We would talk definitely every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and through listening to him talk about why he built the product, what he's currently working on, where his North Star is in terms of development. I think Blink is it's very much like a product-led company. He wanted to build a strong product, and so much of his time and attention and effort and passion is for the development of the product. And so having that one-on-one time with him where I could really sit down and ask all the dumb questions of like, what is BigQuery? Like, I didn't know what that was when I started, which is it's a huge part of what BlinkMetrics is, and so he was very patient with me. He gave me a lot of time and a lot of attention, and it was just sort of through those conversations and then through osmosis of listening to our broader team calls and hearing what the dev team is working on that I was able to really understand what the product is, how it works, and then it really is like why Nathan built it is like that's the value prop, right? Like that's the problem that he actually solved for himself. BlinkMetrics was a homegrown
Yeah.
tool to solve his own business problem and automate his own business. And then understanding why he built it for himself and then taking that, packaging it up in such a way, and then reflecting it to other founders or people who care about business metrics. a lot of what I say on sales calls is just stuff Nathan said to me when he was complaining about why he built Blink in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to underscore something you said, and something that I believe is incredibly important for sellers, marketers, just business people in general, is the why. And I talk about this a lot on the show, and I've shared this in my newsletter that I'm a big fan of starting with the why. That's a Simon Sinek reference to his book, Start with the Why. He's done a TED talk on it. And a number of years ago, I was working in an early company, and the CRO introduced me to the golden circle concept that Simon Sinek put out, which is basically, and I'm going to totally butcher it. I'm not prepared. I'm just riffing here. But basically, if you start with the why and then you go to the how and then you go to the what, I think is the order. The why is sort of the most important thing. And the example he uses is like, why does Apple make computers? They don't just make it to, turn a profit. Of course they do, but the messaging to their customers is not like we make computers to make a profit. It's why we do it. Well, there's a lot of things that Apple does, but like they make computers accessible to everybody, right? And I'm again butchering Apple's mission statement, but it's something that I've actually deployed in my selling, especially in the early companies that I've worked at, because you don't have a lot of the what or the history or the proven this or that. Like I don't work for Microsoft, so I can't say we've been around for 40 years and we're so reliable. I have to, come up more with a why statement. Why should this matter to you? And it should matter because, and everyone's got to come up with that why statement for themselves. More mature companies that are further along in their growth cycle probably already have this fairly well defined. But for listeners out there, if your team doesn't have that, then you as the seller, you as the marketer in your company need to go and figure out how to position that better when you're talking to customers and prospects. How do you position the why we do what we do? What mission are we on as a company? Because that actually will resonate so much better than just, hey, here's exactly what the software does, and let me show you this feature, and let me show you this function, and let me show you this cool bell and this cool whistle. It's so much more powerful to say, like, we exist because we're trying to solve this problem. And, to your point, Nathan's vision was, hey, I'm scratching my own itch here. This is something I wanted, so I built it. And I imagine there's other people that want this too. And, I'm sure you could take the why statement a lot further than that. But I just wanted to call that out for listeners because I think it's just such an important part of effective selling is being able to define the why your company exists, what the bigger vision is beyond just the bells and whistles and features and functions. And then the best sellers know how to map those things together, right? So why we exist? Well, we exist to XYZ. Map that now back to challenges that the customer might be facing every single day. And voila, you've got a customer.
Yeah, we did BlinkMetrics didn't even have a vision statement or mission statement when I started, and that was one of the things a few months in, I was like, "We should have this. We should have that," like, that's like the ultimate North Star is like,
Yeah.
why are we doing what we're doing? And I think as a team, the feeling was there, but it wasn't written down anywhere. There was no sentence that existed that explained that. Um, and we're so early stage, we're moving so quickly. And, when I sat down, I was like, guys, we need a vision statement.
Yeah.
Nathan and his co-founder Natalie, and I can explain that relationship too. But Nathan and Natalie were like, we've been building Blink for years. We use it. We run our business on it. Like we haven't needed it yet. But for me as a salesperson, and I'm head of sales and marketing. So as a salesperson and as a marketing person, it felt really important to at least write that down. There are a million steps that we skipped, but
Yeah.
I was like, we need we need a vision statement. Even if you know it in your heart,
Right.
it's gotta be something that we can share.
It won't
So,
scale. Yeah, it won't scale unless all of the team is driving towards that same vision. And that's, again, marketing, sales, operations, even the development team should have some idea of what that vision is so that they can build the product accordingly. So, yeah, big believer in the why, starting with the why. Um, I think the way Simon Sinek puts it in the TED talk that he did was people, in this case, people being prospects or potential customers, people care a lot more about how you say something than what you say. And so if you're able to very passionately convey what your vision is, that is going to resonate a lot more than a less passionate, brass tacks conversation about all the features and functions that the product has and why they're cool, right? So
yeah. That's helpful. It's helpful as a non-technical person working with a very technical product. I get the wording wrong all the time. People on calls are like, "Oh, this person's not technical." That's obvious, but I believe in it. I'm very passionate about it. And I think that as a seller, that was one of the things that I haven't always had in the past is like a real like belief in what I was selling and a like a true I think that BlinkMetrics is underpriced, honestly, but Nathan wants it to be affordable for small business. He wants to solve
Yeah.
this problem without it being, with there being as low of a barrier as possible for people to actually use it and have better business metrics. But um, it's the first time that I've been selling anything that I've been like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible. This is really cool. And I think that as a seller, if you can get to that point where you just have this wholehearted undying belief, unshakable belief in what you're selling, it does make the sales process so much easier because even if you say slightly the wrong thing or you
Yeah.
stumble on a sales call, the passion shows through. And that has been very again, very helpful for me as an someone who's not worked in software before selling some pretty complex software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask what are some campaigns that you've run over the last 6 months, 12 months since you started in the role that you've found to be pretty effective? What should people be thinking about as sort of trends and tactics and campaigns that you could do to get more pipeline, to get more customer interest and those sorts of things? Maybe share the top one or two that you've seen work really well.
Oh, Jesse, you're gonna hate this answer. None. None. No
None.
formal campaigns
Well, informal
because
ones. What? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
it's so much of it has been just personal targeted outreach one-on-one to people. So
Mhm.
LinkedIn has been a very powerful tool for me. Joining networking groups has been a very powerful tool, but we've not done any paid ads or campaigns. We started the journey to get cold emails going to people who fit our ICP. And then, I can talk about all the things that we started. And then we were like, we don't have time to invest in that. But I think my, the biggest learning I have is that if you don't have time to invest in a campaign or a way of marketing to people, it's going to be a lot harder for it to be successful. And that's something that we've learned again and again, which is if you're gonna run a campaign, you have to make sure it's a solid campaign, and if you don't have the time or attention or resources to do it well, don't don't waste your time on a am I allowed to curse on this
Oh,
show?
please. Yeah, of course.
Like, don't waste your time on a shitty campaign, right?
Yeah.
Don't put your company's name out there in a way that isn't thoughtful and hasn't been thought through because people are just going to look at you and you're going to decrease your social value
Yeah.
if you don't put the right time and attention into it. So we're still at the stage where we have very limited resources, very limited time and attention. And so the one-on-one outreach has been very impactful for our business, but we haven't run any major campaigns yet that I could speak to. I don't know, have me back on in a year and I'll let you know
Yeah,
what I've
I think we
accomplished in
will.
2025.
Is there a channel? You mentioned LinkedIn. Are there any other channels? So is it email, phone? Are there other like are you guys spending on ads at all or anything like that?
No ad spend. We are looking at cold email as a channel, but that, as you know, is a very
It's pretty saturated.
complicated, saturated
Yeah.
space. And again, if you're going to do it, you need to do it well, and it takes a lot of time to do cold email. We don't
Yeah.
do cold calling, although every time I turn around, somebody else is espousing the benefits of cold calling. And so these are all things that I would like to explore and see if they could be a good fit for Blink. But um, it's been a lot of LinkedIn networking, and then also I joined a networking group in November of last year, so a few months ago, and the whole purpose of the group is not to sell into the group, but to give referrals. So it's been getting on calls with people, explaining what BlinkMetrics is, who it's very useful for, and then having a network, a growing network of affiliate partners who are then going out and talking to their their friends, their colleagues, the people in their network, and seeing who they might be able to refer over to us to have a discovery call or to do a demo.
Yeah. I know you and I have talked about this, but I think the affiliate model for a lot of SaaS companies and products is a really good one. Even at the enterprise level, building out partnerships with people that can resell your products, or in your case, it's probably just driving traffic to the landing pages and the demo request pages and those sorts of things to get that, to just get those at bats for selling those customers. Is BlinkMetrics fully self-service? If I'm an interested customer, can I just go to the website and buy it, or do I have to go through a demo process with you and your team?
Our goal is to be self-service at some point in the next 3 to 6 months,
Wow.
um, but it's so I'll explain a little bit about what it is, and then then hopefully people won't be turned off by the fact that you do have to get on the phone with us to buy it. But BlinkMetrics is a data centralization platform. And so the way our business works and the purpose of it is to get business metrics and KPIs and data out of all the silos that it exists in a business. So you have data in your CRM, your email platform, you've got your payment processor like Stripe or PayPal, you have your HR software, your financial software. And as our team grew, we started to feel like the operational complexity of trying to get all these metrics into a single source of truth. We were going into platforms, copy pasting a number into a Google spreadsheet, and that was being updated every week. And then, sometimes someone typed the number in wrong, or they
Yeah.
forgot to put it in for a week and that data disappeared out of the system it was supposed to come from. So, you know, there's a lot of human error when you're doing it all manually. And if you're very uh, conscious of it and trying to avoid human error, it takes a lot of time. It's just a lot of admin time, copy pasting. And these are like smart people who like their time should be spent literally anywhere else except for like
Right.
updating a spreadsheet. So what BlinkMetrics does is Nathan jokes, he's like, to save myself 30 minutes a week, I spent the last 3 years building a product that would do it for me. And
Yeah.
so what we do is we've built API connectors to all the common tools and platforms that a small business or startup would use to run. So all of those different systems. And we pull all of that data granularly into a private data warehouse for each of our customers. So for example, we're not just copy and pasting a number that's on your Shopify dashboard. We're actually
Right.
pulling every single customer order that's coming in through Shopify, you know, total of the order, what products were ordered, what time the order came in. All of those small little pieces are coming in and being housed in your data warehouse. And then from there, we have a user interface that you can decide what KPIs are most important for you to track. And then they just get
Wow.
automatically populated and refreshed. I mean, up to hourly, up for some customers, even more often than that. It's like every 15 minutes. So you have this constantly updated spreadsheet of your metrics. And then we store all of that data. So you can track trends over time. You can look at not just week over week, but quarter over quarter, year over year. And that type of information becomes really powerful for businesses.
Yeah.
That all said, as a business, sometimes people come to us like they know they want to track business metrics, but they don't know what those are. Or
Right.
they know that they have a spreadsheet that they're keeping up, but they don't they're strapped for time. They can't take on another development project to like get all the
Yeah.
API connectors set up and get all their metrics put into the system. So right now, this is the most long-winded answer you probably never expected to this question.
No,
So
I love it.
so right now, our onboarding is very white glove. We get on a call. We understand, first of all, you know, is our system going to be useful for this business and how they run and what they want to track?
Yeah.
And then they basically tell us what they want that scorecard or that spreadsheet to look like. And then we do all of the setup for them. We just get API access. And then from there, we set up the metrics. We build out the scorecard. And then it usually takes about a week. We show it we show it to our customers. They say, oh, we thought about it. We want to track this instead, or we've been using this for a week, and can we change this metric or add this metric? And we have a very tight knit relationship for about the first 30 days. And then people are usually off to the races. But we've got great customer service, because that's another thing. Nathan and Natalie were like, software can suck so much. And
Yeah, it
if you
can.
can't reach a human for customer service, like, it can be so frustrating. So even if it's 60 days, 90 days, 6 months in, we always have a human available to help them sort out any issues they might have in the future after their scorecard is set up.
Is there a specific vertical or industry you're going after? Or is this just really any small business, or is it more focused on early startup companies, tech startups?
This is going back to the ICP question, right? Which is
Sure.
like, who are we targeting and why? So we set up our scorecard and metric tracking because we had implemented EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. And a piece of running EOS is having your weekly scorecard and tracking your metrics every week. A
Got it.
lot of businesses running on EOS have the pain point of people not updating their metrics, or it's like 10 minutes before the meeting, and half your scorecard is empty, and you're like chasing down your head of finance or your head of marketing to get their numbers in.
Yeah.
So a really easy kind of like low hanging fruit for us is EOS run companies and people who have a scorecard, they're tracking metrics, and they just want it to be easier, right? Like, they just don't want that stress on their business. They just want it constantly updated, doesn't take anyone's time. Everyone's busy doing their own thing. Scorecard is always going to be accurate. But there are so many use cases outside of that too. Like, another big portion of our customers are agencies who are delivering reporting to their clients. And
Yeah.
so their clients are hiring them for, 5-10 hours a week. And, they're spending an hour to two putting together weekly reports. And if they could just automate those reports
Yeah.
and completely remove the administrative time, these agencies can either take on more clients, or with their existing clients, spend more time focused on, you know, finding insights, building strategy, and becoming stronger partners for their clients, because they don't have the weight of reporting that they have to keep up all the time. So
Yeah.
um I think, what was your question? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, yeah, just kind of trying to understand. I think I asked a lot of questions. It was trying to understand the vertical, the focus of the product and those sorts of things. So yeah, if anyone out there listening is part of a small operation that's trying to centralize their data and have some insights into their business, it sounds like a BI tool, which is something that enterprise companies have used for a really long time. But it sounds like Nathan wants to bring that downstream to, smaller operations, smaller companies. I think that's a really cool concept. And yeah, I've worked in similar environments where it was providing data and insights to help people track goals, typically at the enterprise level for larger brands who want to look at the millions of customers that they have and understand what trends and changes in the business are occurring. So
Yeah.
it sounds
But
really awesome.
everyone, this is the thing, right? Like, it's been available to enterprise companies for a long time because they have the funds to
Right.
have an entire BI team or data analysts, with nice hefty paychecks. But if you're a small business, like, data is no less important to your growth. If anything, it's more important, but you don't have the resources to have a whole BI team do all of this work for you. And that really
Yeah.
is what Nathan wants to solve. Is for businesses, a lot of people, when you hit that 20, 30 person mark, like, you start to feel that data getting more siloed. You start to feel kind of this data sprawl across the company, and there aren't any solutions there to solve it. And that's what Nathan wants to solve. So yeah, I mean, this sounds like such a sales pitch, and like, that's not the point. It's just, I'm just so excited about what we do.
Yeah.
Um, and anyway, it's
Well, here,
it's it's pretty cool.
let's do something fun actually, because I just had an idea pop up that one, I think. So first of all, you worded that perfectly in that. So just stepping back a second, you and your team are bringing business intelligence, BI, I think I said earlier, but that stands for business intelligence, something that's been available to enterprises for a really long time. Big companies like Delta and Coca-Cola, and the list goes on and on. They all have huge BI platforms and teams and analysts and those sorts of things. So let's get creative here for the listeners, because this might help a few of you out there, and you might be able to take this home too, Amanda. Is if I were selling this product, I would build a slide in the deck. The first slide in my overview deck on the company would say something like, shouldn't small business owners have the same BI capabilities as the big guys? Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I'm literally coming up with this on the fly.
Mhm.
But I always lead, and this is back to our earlier comments about the why statement. I like to lead with I don't want to call it polarizing, but big sweeping statements. And
Opinionated. It's opinionated.
opinionated. Here's why. And this is going to be some really practical technique for people out there who are selling. Is if you can draw a line in the sand while you're pitching a product, you can identify which of your prospects is willing to step over that line in the sand and join you versus the ones that are going to waste all your time and you're going to end up not losing or not winning the deal anyway. So I've always started most of my intro meetings off with some kind of a sweeping statement. And if I'm at BlinkMetrics, it's going to be something like, don't you think small business owners should get the same BI capabilities as the big guns? Something like that. Something that kind of like says, hey, you're just as important as Coca-Cola or Delta Airlines. Shouldn't you have similar capabilities in your intelligence in your business? Like your business intelligence is even more valuable because you're a smaller company with more scarce resources, right? So I would somehow, and I'm again paraphrasing, but turn that into like this statement and literally make that your first slide in the deck. And then you could say something like, at BlinkMetrics, we believe that small businesses should have the same BI capabilities as Delta and Coca-Cola. And then what you can do when you're actually pitching this to a customer is you can pause and say, Amanda, is that something you agree with? Amanda, as a small business owner, is that something you agree with? And if they don't agree with that, then you can say, well, I don't want to waste your time. It sounds like this might not be the right solution. That's our vision. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring the business intelligence capabilities that have existed for decades down to the little guy. And that's our whole business, right? And so you'll be able to qualify out people pretty quickly. And I literally do this on my calls. I'll stop and say, does that resonate with you? And if it doesn't, let's just end the call. I don't want to waste each other's time. If you can't get behind our mission or our action that we're trying to do, then maybe this isn't worth the time, right? So I'll pause there. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, now you have my wheels turning because that is one of the first slides in my deck is like an opinionated
Awesome.
statement, draw a line in the sand. Either someone says yes and you continue, or they say, no, I don't agree with that. And then you're sort of like, okay, I don't know if this is
Mhm.
the right thing for you. But on our demos, we don't usually pull up the sales deck. But yeah, that's
What
that's one of the slides. But now I'm like, did I hear that on the Sales Player podcast at some point in the past? And then you put that into the framework of how I built out the deck because that's how the deck is. And I'm like, oh, Jesse definitely said this before, and I definitely stole it from him already.
And I stole it from no, I probably I took it from a sales leader in the past who got it from a blog post that was put out by a guy named Andy Raskin years ago on the perfect sales deck. And I'll
Mhm.
link to that in this episode just so people have it. But the idea is, and when you stop and think about selling something like a software product like BlinkMetrics, it's a series of micro commitments from the buyer all the way through the journey. And the first commitment you can get from them, long before you're asking them to commit to spending money with you or giving you their credit card or letting you invoice them or whatever, the first commitment that you need to get is, are you into our mission, right? Are you into this? Because if you're not like fiery passionate about sticking it to Coca-Cola, even though we're not actually sticking it to Coca-Cola, but like, it's unfair. How come Coca-Cola gets BI intelligence up the wazoo, but we don't get anything? So you want to get them fired up. And that's their first commitment is,
Yeah.
are you committed to our why? And if you're not, then I don't want to waste time with you, or I don't want to waste your time either. Right. Because if this isn't something that gets you fired up, then when the rubber meets the road, when we get to the point where I'm asking you to sign a contract or to give me your credit card number, then you might get squeamish or you might pull away, right? I want you to be leaning into this the entire time. And the first commitment I get from my prospects, usually within the first 10 minutes of my first call with them, is, can we agree that this is like a mission that we're on together?
Mhm.
And after that agreement, every other micro commitment gets a little bit easier because then it's like, okay, can we agree to another call after this one where we do a demo of the product? Okay, after the demo, can we agree to come up with a pricing proposal together that works for both us and your budget? And then from there, can we commit to a time to start this? What's the go live date? When do we want to have this in place? Like, can we commit to those things? It really is. And this is especially prevalent at the enterprise level because it is just a big series of micro commitments. And sometimes those take 9, 10, 18 months in the enterprise. But in your world, it might be a lot faster to get someone to make those micro commitments that then turn into these compounding things that become signed contracts and credit card numbers and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, you wanna introduce a little bit of friction during the sales process because every time
Yeah.
you introduce friction and get past it, you've earned that much more commitment on both sides. So it's I'm probably butchering this, but I know
No, that was
people
actually
have
well
talked a
said.
lot about people have talked a lot about friction, and it's yeah, if you can introduce friction, not conflict, but friction, and you both get past it together, it really does help with the trust building, and that's super important for a very small early stage startup where, you don't have a laundry list of logos that you can point to and say, this person uses us, that person uses us. Like, you're early and you need to just be honest about that. But if you can get people to, agree with the mission and then trust you and trust that you're going to do right by them, that goes a really long way when you're in a small bootstrap startup.
Where can listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can go to the BlinkMetrics website if you want to learn anything else about BlinkMetrics. For me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/in/Amanda M as in Michelle Crooks. Feel free to connect with me. Feel free to reach out. I love getting on networking calls. So if anyone wants to just chat or commiserate about being an early stage startup, like, I feel you. I'm there, even if it's just a session to hop on and like just chat about our experience. I
Yeah.
love that. I find a lot of value in that. And we have a podcast. BlinkMetrics does have a podcast if anyone wants to learn more. We had a lot, we had quite a few episodes launched last year. We're relaunching this month in February of 2025 for our second
Awesome.
season. So, I'll tell you the details, Jesse. I don't know the exact link, but we're on YouTube,
Yeah.
and we'll probably try to like reach out and get on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and whatever.
Yeah, we'll paste the link in the show notes also. So if you want to check out the show, what's the show called?
It's called Chaos to Clarity: Building a
Oh, cool.
Culture of Data.
Chaos to Clarity, Building a Culture of
Yeah.
Data. Go check it
If
out on
you
YouTube.
Yes, if you Google Chaos to Clarity, you're gonna get a million different hits of random stuff that people are like, "This is chaos, and now it's clarity." But we were like, "Okay, nobody, like, owns this name." So, hopefully, we'll start to move up in the rankings for that and get on the first page of Google search.
Well, awesome. Amanda, this has been a great conversation. Hopefully everyone out there enjoys this, especially those that are in early companies trying to figure out how to make sense of nothing, make sense of the madness that exists within these early companies. And thanks for coming on and telling your story and sharing so much value.
Jesse, thank you so much for having me. And as another plug for you, coaching has been so helpful. If anyone's interested, like, reach out to Jesse, do coaching, talk to him about your problems, go to him for therapy. Like, he's wonderful. And yeah,
Sales
thank you.
therapy.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.